The new customer satisfaction survey report is in. The results are in. How do you think Etsy fared? Do you think that they fared better or worse than last year? Also, Etsy released their Q4, their quarter four, and full year financial results. I want to talk about that and the customer satisfaction survey in today's episode of Seller News. Let's go. Everyone, what is happening? Welcome back to the Seller News Friday episode of the Handmade and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, LL. Glad to be back hanging out with you guys, talking about all things Etsy, handmade, e-commerce, all the things that may impact your business. I'm here for you. I'm going to break it down in today's episode. So I have another really good episode for you guys today. Today I have two main things that I want to talk about, and that is the customer satisfaction survey report done by a third party and those results. And I also want to talk about the Q4 and final year financial results that Etsy posted, because that's very telling to our future as Etsy sellers. How good is Etsy faring financially? Because if they're not doing good, that's not a good sign for us as sellers in the marketplace. We obviously want our third-party platforms such as Etsy to be doing good, because we don't want to wake up one day and have them defunct and all the while the business is going downhill while we're trying to make money on Etsy. So it's really important to pay attention to that stuff. And I'm going to make it real simple. I'm going to pull out some highlights for you guys so you know what is going on. But the first thing I want to talk about is the customer satisfaction survey or index, whatever you want to call it. That is done by a third-party company. It's called the American Customer Satisfaction Index, a retail and consumer shipping study. Super short, super easy to remember. They need an acronym, right? So they're not, I think they need to add a couple more words, and then we're going to have a whole full page paragraph story for the name of this survey. Anyway, so they release this every year. And they rank companies, they give companies a score. I'm assuming based on polling, based on different surveying that they do. I don't know exactly how they get this data, but they get it and they do it every year. And a lot of people pay attention to it. And I think it is important to see what customers think of these third-party companies, these selling platforms. So they do a lot of the big names, eBay, Etsy, Amazon are some of the biggest that they do, and they rank. And they have other categories. They have grocery stores. I think there's retail in there as well. So they do a lot of different companies, a lot of different sectors. The one we're going to pay attention to is e-commerce, because that's what we're in. We want to see how Etsy is faring with customer satisfaction, because if our customers aren't happy, they're not going to continue coming back to the platform. So no matter what we do as sellers, not no matter what we do is important, but overall, Etsy really helps drive customer satisfaction with their marketing, their touch points, their platform, how that engages with the customer. There's only so much we can do as sellers to provide a good buying experience, but there's a lot of things out of our hands that Etsy does with their advertising, their email follow-up, their order notifications. Things that they do that we have no control over are very important to satisfaction. And we want our customers to be happy. We want them coming back and buying from us again. We want them coming back to the platform. Because that overall gives the company, gives Etsy money, gives us money, and we're all very, very happy when we have money. All right, so how does Etsy fare compared to some of the competition out there? Right now, the basically what the report said for 2022, I'm going to start with Amazon. Amazon fared the best. They increased 8% from prior year. So they increased to 84. I think it's a score out of 100, 0 to 100. Pretty simple. So they're at 84. And that was after 2 years of decline. They found a way to bounce back. I know with Amazon, buying, a lot of us buy on Amazon. It's super easy. It's super fast now. Selling on Amazon is another story. It's very, very cumbersome and not very hard. So they're lucky that this is a customer satisfaction survey and not a seller satisfaction survey, because you may think eBay or Etsy is hard. try selling on Amazon. It is extremely, extremely hard to get set up and sell on Amazon. It's very, very cumbersome. And I'm a pretty tech savvy guy, and it's definitely not easy. But, anyways, from a customer standpoint, Amazon is number one. They increased 8%. Number two is Etsy. However, they did decline 2% to 80. So they were at 82 the year before. They declined 2%. They had the year before, they actually had a 3% jump to lead all online retailers. So they had a huge jump. And I'm not sure if this was because of COVID. They had a lot more people on the platform, which I'm going to talk about in the financial data, how much more growth Etsy has seen since COVID. So with that big jump in buyers, and a lot of people had to buy stuff on Etsy, they seem to get a higher customer satisfaction score with the amount of people that were buying from Etsy and happy. So I'm thinking it has something to do with that, and then kind of took a step back this prior year for whatever reason. Some of those people weren't selling or weren't as happy, but 80 is still pretty high. And I think that's, if you're that close to Amazon, which is clearly the leader, the powerhouse, I think that's pretty good. Now, I know there's stuff that they can tweak. We can always do better. But overall, it seems like people, are still pretty happy with buying from Etsy, which is a good sign for us as sellers. We want people to be happy. And they think also some of the decline, and I'm going to talk about this in some of the financial data, the actual company, the American Customer Satisfaction Index for Retail and Customer Shipping Study People, said that the decline was probably also attributed to Etsy's purchase of Depop and Elo7, which Depop is a fashion brand that Etsy now owns to sell clothing and fashion items. And then Elo7 is like the Etsy of Brazil. So it's a handmade platform that is in Brazil that they acquired. So some of that may be growing pains attributed to those purchases where a lot of their funds and a lot of their resources were tied to those companies because they just bought them. That could attribute it to it as well. All right, number 3 was eBay. They saw no change. They came in at 76. So a solid C for eBay. eBay has remained pretty much unchanged since I've been on it since 2000. They haven't really changed too much on the platform. So I think it's one of those platforms. It's either it is what it is. You either love it, you hate it, or you're just indifferent about it. People that buy on eBay will continue to buy on eBay. People that find eBay either love it or hate it. And they haven't made a lot of great strides to really change or improve the platform, I don't think, from the actual front forward seller interface. I mean, they made little tweaks here and there, but the platform's so old. I think it's hard for them to make huge sweeping changes, but overall it's still a good platform. I started my business on eBay. I still use eBay a lot to sell items, so it's still a very big player in the e-commerce space. So those are the top 3, mainly how Etsy has fared, which is important to us who mainly sell on Etsy. But that is the rankings for the customer satisfaction survey. Take from it what you will, but overall, I think it is decently good news. The next thing I want to talk about is the financial stuff. I'm not trying to put you to sleep or bore you with this stuff, but it is important. We want to see how Etsy is doing financially to make sure that they are going to be taking care of themselves and us as sellers on the platform. So a couple of the main highlights that I thought were really interesting that I'm going to cover real quick here for you. The first is the business size. This is basically the number of buyers and sellers on the platform. Overall, Etsy has increased 3 times the size they were pre-pandemic. That's crazy. 3 times. So they have grown substantially since the pandemic. And I know a lot of people flock to the platform to buy masks and all that, and flock to the platform to make extra money when they were laid off. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but I thought that was pretty wild because they were already a big platform, but they increased 3 times their amount. Right now, they're sitting at over 120 million active listings. So they have 120 million products on the platform, which is a lot. It's a lot of products on the platform. The buyer diversification, they had 22 million active buyers identify as male for 2022, which was an increase of 124%. So a lot more male people. Etsy used to be primarily for a lot of females, but males are finding the platform and starting to sell, which is good for everybody. There's gonna be more male buyers, more male sellers on the platform. So I think that's a good thing to help diversify the platform and grow the platform. 24 million buyers who lapsed over the prior 12 months came back to Etsy. This is the most the company has ever reactivated. So this is good. This is showing that Etsy is doing their part with marketing and whatever campaigns they're doing behind the scenes to bring buyers back to the platform. And I'm starting to see more television ads. I, of course, always saw email ads. So these things are actually working. 24 million people coming back to the platform to buy is only going to help us as sellers. So if Etsy keeps up that pace, that retention, that's going to help us as sellers. So I think that's a good thing. For Q4, they had 9.4 million new buyers, brand new people that bought for the first time. That's awesome. They're bringing a lot of new buyers for us. That's a ton of buyers. So that's always a good thing. And then I thought this was interesting. Habitual buyers, which are people who buy 6 or more items on Etsy totaling over $200 annually. They had 7.4 million habitual buyers, which, man, I think that's really great. That's a ton of buyers buying 6 or more items a year on the platform. So that was really interesting. And then repeat buyers, people that bought more than once, they had 36 million buyers. So these are people that are not new, they bought more than once, but aren't habitual. So repeat buyers are really important to a platform's growth. They're important to us as individual sellers. We want people coming back and buying from our shop again and again and again. So that's really important. So a couple of other things, digging in a little bit more to the financials. They did lose money as far as net income in 2022, but this was because of the Depop and Elo7 acquisition. So they did lose a few $1,000,000 because of that acquisition. Any big acquisition, you usually end up losing money on your net income. However, revenue was up $2.56 billion. This was up 10%. So they're making more money. They're investing it in some of these other companies. Their active buyers, they had 89.4 million. So this was down slightly from prior year, 0.08%. So very, very slight decrease, which, remember, during the pandemic, they were bringing in all these new buyers. And since then, they only have lost 0.08%. So not a big loss considering how much they've grown and how many new buyers they've brought in. So I think that's really good. And then active sellers, they're up to 5.4 million. This is a 1.9% increase. So there's still people coming to the platform to try and sell on the platform. The good thing about that is a lot of sellers also are buyers for the platform. So the more sellers can be a good thing to continue to grow Etsy, to continue to give Etsy the resources to grow, and in return help us all as sellers. I know you may think, okay, more sellers, more saturation. Competition is good. The more people coming to the platform is good. You can always carve out your piece of the pie, your niche, especially if you're doing all the right things and you're taking care of your customers in your shop, and you're doing all that stuff well. Competition is fine. You're not going to be doing the exact same thing. You're not going to be selling the exact same thing. So the ultimate goal, to bring in as many buyers and sellers as possible, because in return, it's going to continue to help the program or the platform grow and help us all out as sellers. So the numbers are strong. There's a few dips here and there, but nothing crazy. Etsy has been very transparent as far as their numbers go, as far as what they're letting us know as sellers. So that is it as far as the two things I want to talk about. Hopefully it didn't put you to sleep. This stuff is important as sellers to know how they're doing. So you can be satisfied and that you know that Etsy is going in the right direction. So you don't have to worry about that. You can worry about yourself and your own business and growing on the platform that is still doing very, very well. So keep working on your shop. keep making sure you're doing the right things as far as your customers go. Keep refining your craft. Keep learning. Keep listening to this podcast, this YouTube channel to help you. I'm always here to help you and guide you as well. And then take action in your business, in your shop, and you will carve out your piece of the pie. But that is it for today's episode. Have an amazing rest of your Friday. Have an amazing rest of your weekend. I'll be back with you soon.